Hey third graders, welcome to Narrative Writing Lesson 5. Today we are going to be adding dialogue to our first drafts from yesterday. Let's have a quick flashback from yesterday. So yesterday you should have brainstormed another personal narrative topic. This should have been done through Think, List, Write or Think, Map, Write. Then you should have created an outline. Your outline should have a topic sentence, at least 3 details, and a closing sentence. The outline would then help you write your first draft. So you should have completed a first draft yesterday. This will help you to do the lesson today. If you did not do the first draft yesterday, please pause the video and do that now. So have your first draft in front of you. Before we start, check your draft for the following things. At least 3 details that explain your big moment or the topic you wanted to write about. See if your first draft has transition words like first, then, next, or last. And make sure your first draft has some descriptive words, which allows readers to create a story in their heads. So for example, if you had that you are riding your bike, maybe you should add in what color. You can add and say, I was riding my purple bike. All right, let's check in on our learning targets. Our first learning target is, I can incorporate dialogue into my personal narrative writing. So I can incorporate means to add. So you're just going to be adding dialogue. And we'll get into more detail about what this word dialogue means. By the end of this video, you should be able to explain what dialogue means and use it in your personal narrative. The second target is, I can revise my writing by adding more details, descriptions, and sentences. So today, after you add in some dialogue into your personal narrative, you're going to reread your writing and see if you should add in more details, descriptions, and sentences. This is called revising, making your personal narrative better. So these are the 2 learning targets we have for today. So today we are going to add dialogue. What is dialogue, you ask? Well, dialogue is a conversation between 2 or more people. So for example, can I get a dog? I asked my dad. Not today, he said. So that is dialogue, a conversation between me and my dad talking about getting a dog. So there's 2 parts of dialogue, a quote and a tag. So a quote is what the character is actually saying. So in the example we have above, the part that is the quote is, can I get a dog? And not today. Those are the words that the characters are saying. The tag is the part that comes after. It describes who is talking. So the tag is, I asked my dad, and he said. So we have our quote and our tag. That is what dialogue has, 2 parts, quote and tag. The quote is the words that the character is saying, and the tag is the part that comes after or explains who is talking or speaking in your narrative. So look at the difference. Here's a story. I was walking through the grocery store one day with my mom. She saw a cart coming straight toward me, but I didn't see it. I ran right into the cart and landed in a heap on the floor. It was such a disaster. That's our first story. Now look at the second story. I was walking through the grocery store one day with my mom. All of a sudden she yelled out, "Watch out for that cart!" I was starting to turn around to see what she was talking about, but the cart was coming too quickly. I yelled out, "Oh no, stop!" as the cart came crashing into me. As I landed in a heap on the floor, I screamed, "Ouch! Watch out next time!" It was such a disaster. So looking at those two stories, you can tell which one is more exciting. Which one do you think it is? You're right, story 2. Story 2 has all of these dialogues or parts where the characters are speaking that really makes the scene come to life and makes the reader interested in what's happening. Do we have to add dialogue, you might ask? Yes, we absolutely have to. As you could tell in the last slide or section of this video, the second story was much better because the dialogue that was added helped you do 3 things. 1. Imagine the story as if you had been there. The dialogue helped you understand what the characters were feeling. And the dialogue captured your attention more because of the added details the dialogue provided. So adding dialogue allows your reader to have these 3 things. That's why it's important to add dialogue to your story. The next thing we're going to talk about is dialogue and punctuation. Right before dialogue is added, you need to have a comma. Next, you need to capitalize the first letter of the quote. Then, you have to add quotation marks at the beginning of what the character is saying, and you have to add quotation marks at the end of what the character is saying. But before you can add that quotation mark at the end, you need to make sure that you have punctuation, like a period, a question mark, or an exclamation point. Don't worry, we're going to have some practice with this before you have to do it in your own personal narratives. So let's get some practice now. Sarah asked, "Please, can I have the dog?" When you look at this, does this follow the rules? Is there a comma before the quotations? Is there a quotation mark where the quote is starting? Does the quote start with a capital? Does the quote end with punctuation? And does the quote end with another quotation mark? Let's go ahead and see. I'm going to circle the parts that I see. I see, 1, that there is a tag. I also see the other part, a quote. So we have the 2 parts of dialogue. Let's check out our punctuation. I see that there's a comma that's separating the tag from the quotation. I see 1 quotation mark at the beginning. I see that the quote starts with a capital and ends in some punctuation. And you can never forget that end quotation mark. So, does this quote have all the parts and correct quotation and punctuation throughout it? Yes, it does. So let's put a check next to it. Let's look at this second sentence. "No, you can't have the dog," her dad said. So let's look in. I see that there is a tag. I also see that there's a quote. However, their quotation mark isn't around the quote. It's around the tag. How could we fix this sentence? What do you think we should do? Exactly. We need to cross off the quotation marks here because we don't want the quotes around the tag. We want it around the quote. We would add the quotations here around the quote, one in the beginning and one in the end. That way we know what part's the quote and what part's the tag. I see that this H is still capitalized. We probably shouldn't have it capitalized if it's part of the tag. It's not the quote. So we can mark that off, and we're going to make that a lowercase h. So now let's reread it. No, you can't have that dog, her dad said. That sounds way much better. So now that we know how to add punctuation to our quotes and dialogue, let's look at our first draft. I have my first draft right now in front of us. We're going to try to add in some dialogue throughout my first draft so that you can do it to your own. Let's look at this first sentence. The first sentence says, one time, my brother Jeremy and I got lost in the woods. Okay, that's our topic sentence. It's introducing to us to what's going to happen. I don't see where I could put any quotations there or dialogue. My brother told me he was really bored and wanted to do something. If my brother's telling me something, maybe I should make it into a quote and into a dialogue. Let's see what we can do. So if my brother told me, that could be our tag. So my brother told me. Let's put a comma there and start our quote here. Our quote can be right here with our two quotation marks and end it with our quotation marks. However, it doesn't really make sense if my brother told me, and his quote was, he was really bored and wanted to do something. If my brother was telling me something, he would probably say, I am really bored and wanted to do something. So let's mark off he, and we'll make this an I. I am really bored. That makes a lot more sense. So that's a quick, easy edit to add some dialogue into our personal narrative. I am really bored, and we'll say want to do something because that's him talking. So I am really bored and want to do something. So there we go. My brother told me I am really bored and want to do something. That really shows me that my brother's bored and that we're going to go do something. So I said, oh look, another tag we could probably use. So I said, that could be our tag, and this could be the start of our quote. However, we should probably make this W a capital W. Let me fix that a little bit for us to see. We'll make it a capital W, making it because it's our start of our quote, so it needs to be capitalized. So we should go for a walk in the woods. And that would be the end of what I said to my brother. Now we have two pieces of dialogue in our text. It's really getting more interesting. Next, we started to explore and found some awesome things. Okay, that sounds pretty good. That's part of our transition words and some details. Let's continue to read. My brother told me he saw a fox. Maybe we can make this into a quote. My brother told me could be our tag, and he saw a fox could be his quote, but we'll change he to an I, so that it's my brother that is talking. So we can say, I saw a fox. This makes it a little more exciting that my brother was excited and he got to show me that there was a fox in the woods. Then we realized it was getting dark and we should probably head home. But we turned around and I realized I didn't know where we were. So maybe I can add some quotes there, some dialogue here. But we turned around and I realized maybe we can say and said. And said, I didn't know where we are. So we can say, I don't know where we are. This might show some scary parts, like we're a little lost. So and said was what we would add to our personal narrative here. Here's our quotes. And I didn't know where we were. So we could say, I don't know where we were. So this would be changed to I don't. Where we are. Luckily, my dad found us in the woods and helped us get home. There's one thing I forgot in this dialogue here. Punctuation. We need to make sure we end it with an exclamation point. If I was saying, I don't know where we are, I would probably be yelling and be a little scared about not knowing where I was. But luckily, my dad found us in the woods and helped us get home. Now that we added some quotes, it looks a little better and sounds more interesting. All right, friends, let's go ahead and review those learning targets. I can incorporate dialogue into my personal narrative. That is something we did together today. We added dialogue into my personal narrative, and now it'll be your turn to add dialogue into your personal narrative. Our second target was, I can revise my writing by adding more details, descriptions, and sentences. So after you add dialogue, your next job is to go ahead and add more details, descriptions, and sentences. So you'll be able to work right on top of your first draft. Tomorrow, we'll go through the editing process to make sure our writing looks good, and then you'll be writing up a final draft. All right, friends, thank you for joining me. You guys got this. Make sure that you look at your first draft, add in some dialogue, and then answer the questions down below.